This is the story of Tunji and the giant. Once upon a time, in a small African village, there lived a little boy named Tunji. Tunji and his mother and grandfather lived in a village surrounded by the busy sights and sounds of the lush green jungle. Grandfather believed that every child was given one special gift at birth. But in Tunji's case, he said the good fairy must have stumbled and spilled her load of blessings. He said this because Tunji was a very special boy with many talents. One of those gifts was the gift of courage. Since his father had died before he was born, and grandfather was now bent over with age, Tunji had to help out a lot around the house. When mother needed more palm wine to sell in the market, Tunji would shimmy up the tallest tree to tap its trunk for the palm juice. He knew how to climb the cola nut tree for cola pods and the date palm tree for its sweet fruit. Thanks to Tunji, mother always had plenty to sell on market day. The day Tunji was born, the good fairy also dropped her gift of kindness. The old widow Adibe could always depend on Tunji to fetch her firewood from the forest or water from the river. On candy making day, when mother gave Tunji date sugar candy, Tunji would always remember the other children in the village and would go and share his treats with them. It was on such a day that Tunji met the monkey, Chinua. The other children had trapped Chinua in a cage by the river and were poking at him with sticks when Tunji arrived.
I will give you all the day candy in this bag if you let him go,
Tunji cried out. Well, those children loved candy as much as you do, so right away they traded the monkey for Tunji's bag of sweets. After the children had gone, Tunji ever so gently carried the frightened monkey back into the jungle and set him free. Chinua could see that this little boy was different, and he told all the animals in the jungle about the great kindness of Tunji. From that day on, Tunji became their welcomed and trusted friend. Now we come to the third gift of the good fairy. This was the great gift of music. Grandfather would often remark, just as the birds were made to sing with the sky, so Tunji was made to sing with the earth. By the time Tunji began school, he had already made drums out of animal skins and a balanji, or xylophone, out of the hard teakwood tree. He tied bits of metal to a small drum and made a tambourine. He learned how to fashion flutes from bamboo stems and piccolos from the tall elephant grass. He made ring sticks out of hollow tubes filled with peas and beans, and rattles out of dried out boards on wooden sticks. winter, when all the people stayed indoors, Tunji made music. There was only one time when Grandfather wished the gift of courage had not come upon Tunji. That was when he told him about the giant, Pamamadu, who lived in the evil forest across the river.
I am not afraid of Pamamadu,
said Tunji.
If I should ever meet him, I shall play upon my flute and make him dance.
My brave little Tunji, replied Grandfather. Pamamadu can melt the heart of a lion. You're not braver and stronger than a lion, are you? Tunji listened to Grandfather and decided that it was probably a very good idea to stay out of the evil forest. Many months passed, and the village lay parched under the heat of late summer. Grandfather was sick in his bed, and Mother had no palm wine to sell in order to buy him medicine. The palm trees were too dried out to tap for their juices. Only the trees in the evil forest had any juice. Tunji knew he had to do something, and so he grabbed a palm juice pot and set out for the evil forest. As always, he wore his flute on a string around his neck. That way, he'd have something to play while his juice pot filled up. At the river's edge, Tunji paused to listen to a familiar sound. It was the song of his friend, Chinawa, the monkey. The next thing Tunji knew, Chinawa was sitting on his shoulder and offering him a bite of banana. Tunji was very glad to have his friend go with him, especially on this trip. Crossing the river was easy. The long, dry summer had reduced the river to a weak and shallow stream. But as they approached the evil forest on the other side, Tunji began to feel a little bit nervous. So he started to sing his special jungle song, and Chinawa chattered right along with him. It went like this.
Oh, how the jungle is immense. Oh, how the heat is so intense. Here, you can have a tiger as a pet. I think I heard a lion roar. I think I saw a wild boar. Life in the steamy jungle makes you sweat. I just felt a cobra's tongue. Hyena's song has just been sung. The early morning mist is forming dew. The crocodile's mouth just snapped. A frightening thunderbolt just clapped. The jungle's like my own personal zoo.
Right after they'd finished singing the song, they found a palm tree that looked like it had some juice to spare. Chinawa the monkey grabbed the pot and ran up the tree to tap it for Tunji. Just then, a very strange thing happened. A sudden hush fell upon the forest. The birds stopped singing. The monkeys stopped chattering. Even the trill of the insects suddenly ceased. The only thing that moved in the forest was a jumping toad. As Tunji watched the toad hop on by, he was reminded of something Grandfather had told him. Tunji, my boy, whenever you see a toad jumping in broad daylight, know that something is after its life. As Tunji thought over the meaning of those words, the ground started to shake, and the air around him shivered and grew tense, like a tightened bow. Just then, the trees parted, and Tunji found himself staring up at the giant, Pamamadou. His legs were like massive tree trunks, and his chest was as wide as 5 bass drums. For the first time in his life, Tunji felt very much afraid. Pamamadou bent down and scooped Tunji up the way you would a small kitten. "What is this I've found in my forest?" thundered the giant. "I'm going to take you home and put you in a cage like a pet monkey." Pamamadou carried Tunji to his house, and you can just imagine how big his house was. There he locked Tunji up in a bamboo cage and set him by the open window. After the giant left and Tunji began to look around the room, he just couldn't believe his eyes. The room was full of beautiful, giant-sized musical instruments. There were flutes and balanjis, drums and mbiras. When Pamamadou came back with some food and water for Tunji, Tunji asked the giant if he could really play all those instruments. "Of course I can," boasted Pamamadou. "Nobody can play like I can." And with that, he began to perform. By the time Pamamadou was through playing, Tunji had already thought out a plan to get away. He would challenge the giant to a musical contest.
Pamamadou, you are a great musician, and I thank you for your beautiful concert.
Said Tunji.
And perhaps someday I will play like you.
You? You will never play like me!
You are probably right.
Tunji continued.
But suppose I could keep up with you on my flute. you would have to give me my freedom.
What? Never! Shouted the giant.
Are you afraid I'll play as well as you?
Tunji challenged. Of course not, answered Kamamadu.
Well, then you won't be afraid to make such a promise to me.
Tunji challenged. Kamamadu thought over Tunji's words, and he finally agreed to let him go, if he performed well enough. Tunji knew he could outplay the giant. Quickly, he reached for his flute, which was still hanging on a string around his neck. He started playing a simple folk tune he'd learned from grandfather. Gradually, Kamamadu began to sway with the music. Moved by its beauty, the giant joined in with Tunji, playing a stringed instrument. Then Tunji started playing a happy dance tune. Kamamadu played along, this time tapping on the drum with his foot. And before you knew it, they were both dancing about, having a magnificent time. Well, Kamamadu kept his promise to Tunji. He even carried him back to the river and picked up the full pot of palm wine along the way. Tunji promised he would come visit him during harvest time, and they parted, friends forever. The sun was just beginning to set when Tunji arrived at his hut. Mother was surprised to see the full pot of palm wine, which she immediately took to the market to trade for medicine. By the following morning, grandfather was already feeling much better. He even got out of bed to hear Tunji's story about Kamamadu. Of course, nobody believed Tunji, but they all loved hearing him tell the story over and over again. And to this day, throughout Africa and the whole world, children continue to hear the story of Tunji and the giant.